Hello, everybody, and welcome to the MerlinCast. And we are going to do a podcast and talk about some random things. It's been a fairly quiet month on my channel, I've realized. To be honest, I don't know, it's been kind of an up and down time for me in terms of producing content for a variety of reasons, but I don't think I'll go into that right now. But we'll have a laid back kind of podcast. And as I am often trying to kind of keep myself, semi in the conscious world when I'm doing these things, I like to watch something. And right now I am watching the DBZ Majin Vegeta versus Goku entire fight, which someone has gracefully uploaded to YouTube. And that part where Vegeta just says, "Shall we commence?" is always rather enjoyable. This person, Brian, I believe his name is, has the brand from Berserk. That is my first topic I'm going to be leading into for some relevant anime news. I guess people may or may not be wondering what I'm thinking about the new Berserk anime. And my feelings are probably along the lines of what a lot of people are thinking. It's funny because when I looked at reactions to it, it seems like the general consensus is that people are happy Berserk's back, and the reviews have been generally been positive. But there have been some that have been hating pretty strongly, and I can understand why. Now, for me, the new Berserk anime, oh, I think that, okay, well, first of all, at least the initial introduction, it does kind of follow the initial chapters of the manga, where you see Guts inadvertently saving Puck and kind of battling those skeleton creatures after he tries to befriend this monk and his daughter. And, it kind of jumps forward a little bit after that. And I will admit it does skip some chapters that I did really like from Berserk, but I will be honest, I don't think they're really necessarily crucial to conveying the overall story. But it's kind of weird because it's so brief. It's almost like, why did you include the initial introduction if you were just going to skip? In the first anime, the episode which introduces Guts back in '97 was very similar. It was almost the exact same thing, except instead of saving Puck like he did in the manga, it's saving a woman from being raped, which is funny because I always liked the introduction in the original anime more so than the manga because, well, quite frankly, even though it is kind of a random future shot, which will eventually lead into this long flashback, which was the first anime, I felt like him saving a woman, from that kind of violation and attack was just something that had more weight to it than saving Puck. Now, one reason why I think that, in a way, what the manga did and the new anime, you could argue, is truer to Guts' character, because I think the first anime kind of made Guts seem like he was kind of like this revelment of this justice-seeking paladin-esque guy. When Guts is not really he's a good person, I guess, but he really looks out for himself primarily. It's kind of one of those things, like, if he sees something bad happening to you, he may help, depending on the circumstances. Like, if he finds the people that are attacking you to be really insulting, I don't know. His perception of things, basically, if the weak can't help themselves, they're almost not worth helping, is pretty dark, but that is one reason why Guts is a fascinating character. And, like I said, obviously he is something of a force for good because he doesn't revel in destroying things, and he is trying to go and get revenge on Griffith and stop him. But it's not necessarily because he's evil and he wants to prevent his ultimate plans, but because there was that horrible betrayal where he basically destroyed everything he cared about previously. Anyway, getting back to my thoughts on the anime, I thought that the atmosphere was pretty good for the most part. I thought that like I said, it was pretty accurate to the chapters it's been adapting, which is good. The biggest problem, though, is honestly the animation. It's honestly like 80 or 90% of that CGI style, and I'm like, it's just kind of jarring. I mean, it's not bad per se, but in all honesty, it does look kind of lazy and cheap by comparison. I have a feeling it's probably easier to do than more traditional style hand-drawn animation, but I feel like a lot of hand-drawn stuff, well, isn't it kind of digitally done anyway now, mostly? It's just I was having a discussion with the anime hero about it. Like, is that a way to save cost? I don't know. I was like, you know what?
If to be honest, if it was more traditional animation with some CGI, kind of like the movies, I could live with that. I mean, I've never been the biggest fan of that clashing of the CGI stuff into traditional animation, but it's better, especially put a lot of time and effort into it. They don't do things. But the thing is, this anime is mostly CGI, so it's really weird. And the biggest problem I have with it, honestly, well, is the fact that some of the characters do look like they're robots, and you can tell just the animation is honestly lacking. But Guts' design, he looks too skinny, too narrow-faced. He just looks odd. He doesn't look quite as imposing. Other than that, the only minor gripe I've had with it is that some of the musical cues don't really match the atmospheric style I think that Guts would typically have when he's attacking people. Like there's sort of this light techno thing they've introduced, and I'm like, this doesn't feel like Berserk to me. Berserk always has that classical, sound that's more medieval, or maybe some like atmospheric electronica, just some heavy ambient sounds that are more natural. I don't know, just very odd. But to be honest, I can't really say that I think it's bad. I think that overall the series is pretty good in terms of writing, in terms of adaptation and atmosphere. It's good so far, but it's kind of too early to really judge it, I think, in terms of story and character stuff. But we're hoping that maybe it'll possibly go off into a completely different direction and maybe even dare to give us some kind of real ending. I don't know. It's possible. Maybe not, because it's only going to be like 24 episodes or something. But in any case, I guess I'm fairly satisfied. I'll probably keep watching it. But, it's not like mind-blowingly good, as I think some people were hoping for. But, it's Berserk after all. Well, moving on to, I guess, recent anime. The only other show that I've been really keeping up with lately is Jojo. And I have to say, I don't know, I really do like Part 4. I think the introduction to the story and some of the side characters and the utilization of certain stands is really interesting. Uh, I think it definitely goes to show how creative and silly JoJo really can be. And I really like Josuke as a protagonist. I really do. I think Jotaro kind of fits well in the mentor role. And I don't know, I just think Josuke's stand's always been really cool. And I think JoJo as a whole has just been kind of impressed me with how unique of a series it really is in terms of the style and in terms of the presentation. I think that's what makes JoJo so unique and so, well, eye-popping and interesting for a lot of people is just how it's that very unique blend of comic book cartooniness, but there's something really awesome about it at the same time. I think the character designs and the stands themselves are probably what draw people the most. Yes, but yeah, JoJo's been pretty good. Excuse me while I take a drink. Now, there's also been something my friends and I have been doing off and on, I think like every other week. I've been trying to get this thing going called Anime Sundays, where, as you might seem like it implies, my friends and I get together and we watch some anime. And I actually was introduced to one I had never seen before. One of my friends introduced me to RWBY, which, I thought, based upon what little I knew about it, that it was just another anime, just another anime that I heard was pretty highly rated. And I'm like, I might check that out one day, and which means I might never. But my one friend was like, put this on. And I have to say, when I learned what it was, I was actually far more impressed. And you might think it's weird. I was like, wait a minute. This really, like, oddly animated, low-budget looking thing that's more CG and it's not really like a traditional anime. I was like, what the heck is this? And, I learned about how it was basically created by this guy that did fan art, and so the studio was so impressed they decided to give him money to basically create his own project. And he made his own American anime series, basically, pretty much all by himself. And even that kind of made me, much more impressed by it, because I love stories like that where, the young struggling artists manage to create their own thing because they're given that chance. It's great. And yeah, I mean, of course, I guess traditionally speaking, it's comparatively low budget, I suppose. However, I think it's just kind of awesome. I remember I really liked the characters. I thought that the story
is actually really intriguing. And, once you get past the fact that the animation is kind of a little lesser in quality, you kind of get past it because it does look, rather pleasant. It's pleasant to watch. And everything about it fits pretty well. I was actually commenting to one of my friends that RWBY actually seems to me like just a combined movie of all like these cutscenes of a PlayStation 2 video game. I'm watching it, I'm like, why isn't this like an action RPG that I can play? Where's the RWBY video game from 10 years ago? Like really, I'm just watching a PS2 game, a really good one. And I'm like, it's cool, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought RWBY was pretty awesome. I've also kind of watched some of the epic stuff for Gurren Lagann, which honestly, I've only been used to the dub, and I actually really like the sub version. I thought it was pretty cool. In addition to that, I've been watching some Yu-Gi-Oh! With my friends and trying to introduce me to that. And leading into some channel-related stuff, I have a couple patron requests that will be coming towards the end of the month. I'm going to be continuing on with Tarantino stuff, so the next Tarantino film we'll be talking about. And there's going to be another request, which will probably be film-related somehow. My one patron kind of always has me guessing. And also a new introduction. I had a donation this month, and it's going to actually cause me to do a full series anime review, which is something that I haven't done in a long time, and I will keep that series a secret. But I will say that it is from about a decade ago, and it is, I believe, 26 episodes long. So, one I've never seen before, and it'll be interesting to talk about it. So, you guys will probably see it on the website within the next week or so. So look forward to that. All right. I saw other stuff I've been watching on Netflix. I've been The Office, going through that again, which is pretty good. I also been watching the new HBO miniseries The Night Of, which is really, really awesome. I recommend you guys check it out if you have HBO. Basically, this kid gets, he's a nice kid, hardworking, early 20s, studious kid. Goes out one night, decides to kind of hang with this one girl. She kind of gets him drunk, does some drugs. They have a night of sexual encounters. He wakes up in the morning and she is just murdered horribly. And all the evidence seems to point to him. And he really wants to kind of get out of it. But literally, it seems like he did it. And this lawyer, played by John Turturro, decides to take up his case to defend him. And it's still pretty early in the series. I think there's like 2 episodes out now. But it is good, man. It's really, really good. I don't know if it's going to hold me over through my entire Game of Thrones space, but, it'll work for a while. Let's see. Recently, I also worked on a new intro for my videos, so I'll probably put that up with my new reviews, because I realize I haven't really had an intro, and I'm not sure I really need one, but I put together a little one. Nothing too fancy. Got some clips, some music, playing around, doing some music stuff on the side. Reading some Lovecraft, some Robert E. Howard, which I realize that my style of writing is heavily influenced by them, I guess, or just very similar. Definitely. But it makes sense because I really like their stuff. Let's see. My movie is progressing, I guess. There's been some stuff that's happened just in terms of like scheduling stuff and casting stuff and logistical, budgetary issues and, lots of stuff, and I'll be honest, I'm kind of just wanting to get it done at this point. Looking forward to kind of editing that interesting thing, but I think we'll still get a couple more days of filming yet, and we'll probably be pretty close to done with it. So the movie's still going along for anyone that's interested. And let's see. Last couple weeks I've been doing something different. I started a Pathfinder game, which is a tabletop RPG very similar to Dungeons and Dragons, with several YouTubers. I got Zoro and Bankai are in there. Got a couple other people too. Some of them have kind of joined in here and there. I think Jorshay was in one. Shot was in one. Shot Red, that is. And yeah, it's been pretty fun actually. It's been a pretty enjoyable DMing with them. They've been actually getting the rules pretty well. And I don't know if we're going to be doing any like streams or anything with that, but I think it could be entertaining. It's been fun. It's been a busy couple weeks, though. I think it's tough on everybody's schedules for a lot of different things. I'm supposed to do this review discussion on Robot Carnival with the Phantom Group, but that's been delayed or something. But that is supposed to be happening in the future, I think, some point in the future. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got for now. Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess I'll use the little bit of time here I have to just kind of talk about, I don't know, just some annoying things. You know, the, as you guys know, I'm always kind of on the fringes of the YouTube anime community, I guess, as it were. And I just feel like I've been coming across a couple channels who will remain nameless, but there is like this one guy in particular who literally just seems to make his views off of making fun of and bullying a variety of YouTubers, big and small. And I remember he made this statement about what he does isn't bullying. He literally says, like, I don't understand, guys. It's pure criticism. Like, I'm not bullying. How can you guys say I'm bullying? I even say that I'm not bullying before my videos. I'm like, dude, this kid, he's probably just a kid. Like, look, man, just because you say that you're not bullying doesn't mean that you aren't bullying. I mean, you're not offering any kind of legitimate criticism or analysis. I think I even let a comment on one of his videos. All he does is just, call people, like, I don't know, just horrible terms, cursing at them, claiming that they're homosexuals. Maybe they aren't. And if they are, that's great, but, saying that's a bad thing, making all kinds of slurs. I'm like, but the thing about it is, the reason that person, kind of just came to mind is because I feel like that's just the state of YouTube and the internet in general in a lot of ways, especially in the anime community. It's like, that's the only draw, I mean, if you're not doing live reactions to things, most likely a chapter or episode, the only other option is to create drama based on making fun of the more successful people, I guess. And it's just really disheartening, I'll tell you. It really is, because, ah, man, I don't know, but there are some people, like, I guess, it's funny because it's hard. I guess my history in the community is something of note because there's a certain person named Double for Anime that I find it hard to believe that I actually met and had a conversation with briefly once. And yeah, that was an annoying little brief moment in time, but I didn't really know much about the guy. I just knew that he was a person. I had no idea who he was. And he's one of the more successful anime YouTubers on here, and that's good for him, I mean, if he's passionate about anime, fine. But, I don't know a lot about him. But I do get the sense that there have been some questionable things he's done or whatever, and people like to hate on him. And the thing is, I feel like the hate doesn't really solve anything. It just gives those people views and gives them attention and makes them feel good to just be hating on somebody. I mean, they're not offering any kind of change. They're just hating. And I did a video about the whole Double for Neverworld feud or whatever it was a while back, and I guess people liked what I had to say because it was an honest truth. I'm just like, guys, better than this. I mean, I'm not going to say that people aren't going to debate. They're not going to argue. They're going to fight sometimes. People are going to disagree. But, for the pettiest stuff and just kind of for the sake of doing it, it's just not productive. It's not. It's just spreading negativity for no reason. And I don't like that in any sense, let alone online. And I just kind of get the sense that this YouTube anime community is very just disenchanted. It's not really holding together as well as it used to. Like, it's still kind of there as like a more disconnected group of various people. But when I got into it originally, it was a much more energetic place. And admittedly, there was drama, but it wasn't all about drama. People were doing things. People were getting together, and there was some fun being had at the very least. And I'm not sure what happened with that. But literally all that's left now in any major capacity is the drama, it seems. And and just as a side note, I am naming a couple names here, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But I have been wanting to get my opinion about a couple things, and I think that there are two channels that come to mind that really frustrate me as a content creator. I have put some time and effort in my videos, and I like to put thought into them, and I think that most of my subscribers tend to enjoy them. But at the end of the day, you just want to talk about anime, right? It's kind of this laid back thing. Something you love, whatever. Talk about comic books or movies when I have the time, whatever. You got people. I honestly think on the opposite end of the spectrum to me. Maybe not the exact opposite, depending on what spectrum I'm referring to. I'm not entirely sure. But MistyChronexia, I feel like maybe talking about this guy is kind of beside the point. But I'm not even going to spend too much time on it. But everything about that guy and what he does, if he's happy with it, that's great. And obviously he has some success. But I do think it's like in the cheapest, most uncreative way. Maybe from a marketing standpoint it's good, but, just all the super clickbaity stuff and all the focusing on all the over-sexualized, disgusting crap, I think is like the bottom of the barrel, lowest common denominator of the anime fandom. And I think it creates this horrible personification of what we are as a fan base. It just kind of saddens me though that his videos, are as popular as they are. People seem to genuinely like his stuff. They do. I mean, it's not just a matter of views. People comment on his vids. They watch them. They subscribe to them. People want to see more of that stuff. And it must not necessarily be about the execution. It must purely be about the content. And yeah, of course, people are going to like certain things, and I guess to a certain extent I can kind of understand maybe, but it's not my thing. I guess sex sells is a general concept, but it just kind of saddens me that that's the way it is. Is that just kind of feeding into that love of that perversion is that one aspect of anime that is literally, well, quite frankly, is very easily twisted into the darkest concept of what most people who aren't anime fans or would think of us as stereotypical creeps, basically. And it seems like that's what saddens me, is that is that popular. And I guess I don't necessarily feel that those people might like my stuff, and that's fine, but I just think there are just people on here that make much more wholesome, genuinely good stuff that's, passionate or well thought out, creative, like some of the people in the fandom group, for instance, I mean, seriously, Hero and Kai and a lot of those guys, they make good videos. They're trying new things, and they just want to express their love of anime and do it in a creative, interesting way. And I guess you could make the argument people like Misty are doing that, but, at the end of the day, I guess if he's happy and it's working for him, that's fine, but it's just not, the way I would go about doing it, I guess. But, whatever. I think the worst example, and I'll get really mad about this, is, I think, just the thing that frustrates me the most, for examples of channels on YouTube, it's not just about YouTube, but just how the internet works, how marketing works, how people work, I guess, it's so frustrating. Just the corporate face of soulless, lying, cheap, greedy people. I'm sorry. WATCHMOJO. I wanted to do an actual video on this, but I'm on the mood to just go at it. I detest WATCHMOJO. I do. I really do. And,
I've talked about it before, but look, I saw one of the recent videos, and I was like, oh, top 10 Super Saiyan transformations or whatever, and I'm like, or top 10 fusions, whatever it was. I'm thinking, oh, wow, gee, I wonder why they're doing that. And, of course, why anybody would do a Dragon Ball-related thing now, because Dragon Ball's big. And I know, you make a video on something because it's big, like Game of Thrones, or Doctor Who, or whatever. I get it, fine. Makes sense to talk about what's new, fresh. I get it. I just wish that you wouldn't be so obvious about it, which is what WATCHMOJO is, because, they make multiple videos a day on any kind of generic top 10 list that they possibly can to get the most views away from people that actually put hard work and effort into them. They have these safe, cookie-cutter, generic things that aren't even based upon their own opinions. They hold polls, general polls. They don't have their own opinion to make the list more interesting. So the lists are always predictable,
which means there's no reason to watch it because other people would have created similar lists that were probably better anyway. And you know, it's just, I will admit, there are probably other channels that do this, okay? In fact, I know there are. But they're at least better at hiding it, you know? I mean, when the person, seriously, I've said this before, but I'll say it again, with WATCHMOJO, you can tell the person who's collecting the information, doing the research, or in this case, reading the polls, doesn't really have any direct communication with the person that actually writes the script, who doesn't have any direct communication with the person that reads the script for the video. Seriously. Like, and the most obvious examples that gave it away, I used to like WATCHMOJO. I admit, I used to really like, oh, you know, these are pretty cool top 10 lists, you know. But then I started to realize how fake they were, not necessarily because I disagree with their lists, because oftentimes they're either awfully wrong, in my opinion, or they're just incredibly safe generic, which is worse. But ironically, the reason why I realized WATCHMOJO was so full of it was because of some of their anime videos when they pronounced people's names incorrectly. Gohan and Luffy and Yu Yu Hakusho. And I'm like, I was like, wait, what? Your entire list has lost all legitimacy with me, all validity, because clearly this man or woman reading the script has never seen one clip of the show they're talking about. So they obviously don't care about it at all. They're just doing it to appease people, to get views, to get money, and that's it. That is it. And you know, and it's not so much because WATCHMOJO is that in and of themselves doing this, but I think it represents what a lot of people on YouTube do. And to a certain extent, what I think YouTube itself has pretty much become now. It's not about expression. It's not about communication. It's not about friendship. It's not about anything like that anymore. All it's about is marketability, getting high views, getting money, and that's all it's about. No soul, no fun, no true love of fandom for anything. And I know that that's obviously just a generalization, and I'm sure there are many, many people on YouTube that don't completely believe. And don't get me wrong, if you can make a living on this, you know, doing it, talking about something you love or whatever, being creative in some way, that's great. You know, I'd love to do that and potentially. You know, I would. I'm not going to lie. But I don't think that any type of creative outlet should purely be about money, or else it kind of loses the point. And like I said, once you realize that with somebody that produces something like that, the magic is broken. Like once I heard a couple of those videos, the entire illusion of WATCHMOJO was shattered for me. You know, it's a faceless corporation, you know, that isn't actually truthful. They're lying, you know, and I think a lot of things on YouTube are like that, and it sucks. And yeah, it's unfair for the people that really try hard to create something. It is. It's really annoying, and I guess you could argue that it's kind of similar to a lot of the issues that people have been struggling with since long before YouTube was a thing. You know, it's a similar kind of principle. You know, unfortunately, but it doesn't change the fact that it is kind of irritating. Oh, man. It really is. It really, really is. But yeah, I kind of want to get that out because, you know, it felt pretty good to do so. I'm sure a lot of you guys agree with where I'm coming from anyway. Yeah, well, let's see. I'm going to try to get some more videos out. I will confess there hasn't been as much content here lately, but there will be some, I know, coming towards the end of the month for sure. Still doing my Film Fanatics podcast. Still got the fandom group, so subscribe to them, guys. And I'll open it up too. I was actually thinking, for anybody that's listening at the end here, I'm thinking about considering taking some requests. Of course, I would like it if you gave me a donation or put it through Patreon. But if there was a general consensus on some type of video that you guys might like to see me do on a semi-consistent basis, let me know. Because I would like to make some content you guys might at least have some interest in. Because, I don't know, I could use something to kind of jog my mind and get me started. So I'm taking any suggestions, guys. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later, and you should be seeing some videos from me in the near future. Alright, everybody. Merlin out. Stay magical.